is my review of Solar Opposites. Okay, so this episode is the season finale, and ultimately, as a joke that they explain later in the episode, it's a bit underwhelming for a season finale, which is kind of the point, but or at least that's how they explain it. But the idea is that after setting up a sex orgy slash donation party for UNICEF, don't think about it too much. And something that the episode makes a very good point about Corvo missing because he was too busy trying to perfectly debone a fish, and ultimately fails because as he finds out, he downs the whole fish in one gulp and then realizes he missed the bone and starts choking, which Jesse has to then pull out of his throat. But as they're kind of lamenting on all the weird stuff that happens, there's an image, but I couldn't use it for. I couldn't use it for the thumbnail because it's a little too not advertiser friendly for this site. But as they're talking about all that, the pupa suddenly turns blue, and everybody's a little bit confused about what that means, especially Terry, which Corvo then yells at him for because he's the pupa expert. So they then proceed to bring the pupa upstairs and go through a list of the pupa's various color swatches to see what kind of shade of blue it is. And the list of shades are as follows. There's various shades of blue, but there are 5 different shades of blue. I actually have the complete list here because I don't remember, but it is a really funny gag. Okay, so the list is as follows. If the pupa turns kennel blue, royal blue, it means he has kennel cough. Cornflower blue means that one of the solar opposites had a sex dream about one another. Navy blue, if the Hooler plan is expiring. And for the point of the episode, so Robin's egg blue means that the solar opposites get an Xbox, but the pupa actually turns Pacific blue, which means that the solar opposites are going to die at midnight, which causes them all to panic. At which point they realize they need to actually prepare for what's about to happen to them. And as Corvo begins to explain, when the pupa turns Pacific blue, it actually starts releasing a gaseous chemical hormone thing that causes them to eventually die when their heads explode in 12 hours, and that they're going to have until midnight to actually survive and actually prepare. So everybody just kind of agrees that they should burn all of their possessions on the front lawn while they wait for the death to actually happen. Well, Corvo goes to get his shovel back from Keith so they can bury themselves. And sure enough, Corvo goes to meet with Keith, who apparently makes his own fruit by the foot knockoff brand thing that he makes. And Corvo explains that he's come back to get his shovel because he's dying at midnight, and that they actually need to, and then he's actually going to prepare. And Keith remarks that that's a little bit sad that his neighbor's going to die, but it ultimately points out that he's a little bit surprised about how calm Corvo is about the whole situation. And when Corvo doesn't fully understand, Keith then proceeds to explain that once you die, that's it. And that if he were dying, he would have been really scared and would have done everything he could to actually make sure he led a fulfilling life. At which point Corvo proceeds to run back to the house and immediately explains to the other Slorpians that death is basically permanent, and that they need to make sure that they actually live to fulfilling lives before they die. Although they all believe that they're actually completely fulfilled, and then proceed to go up to the ship's AI, Aisha, and proceed to ask them what the definition of fulfillment is, which is basically coming to a perfect rounding of your character or something along those lines. And at which point Corvo proceeds to ask her to bring up the fulfillment meters, believing it's already pretty high if not fully completed, only to discover that it's actually quite low, and they realize that they actually need to bring the fulfillment meter up in order to actually feel fulfilled and actually die happy, I guess, is the best way to put it. So they then proceed to spend an hour writing down all the things they think they can do to actually go and be fulfilled. And eventually, and after going through a couple of the different notes, they eventually decide that the best thing they can do to actually be fulfilled is to help a ragtag group of people actually win a tournament. So they proceed to once again go back up and to ask Aisha again for help, and she's kind of annoyed that they're asking her so much, but they proceed to ask her where the nearest championship tournament is, and she remarks that the nearest tournament is a polo tournament in Brazil. So they decide that'll have to do, and they proceed to go to a water polo tournament in Brazil and start looking for possible a possible team of ragtag people to actually go and help. But when they realize they can't actually find anybody, they instead zap them with the ragtag ray that they apparently just have, and decide to sort of random team into a ragtag group of individuals that they can then use to fulfill themselves. And what follows is a montage of them training this newly created ragtag group of people to actually go out and really give it their all and actually try to win a game of polo and become the best water polo champions. And they succeed. And at which point the solar opposites they don't turn them back. They just kind of leave, and the one guy is a little bit annoyed by that because he's now an old smoker who's kind of cancer-ridden, and he's not particularly happy about being stuck as a cancer-ridden smoker who's in the rest of his life. Although Corvo is just kind of points out that they don't really have time because they have to get back. Only to discover that their fulfillment meters haven't really gone up. And annoyed, Yumulek then decides to just grab a whole bunch of slips and just go out and do as many of the things they can do to be fulfilled as humanly possible. And the rest of the solar opposites proceed to follow suit. They grab a whole bunch of slips in their hands and proceed to do a whole bunch of things, which results in a lot of really funny and creative scenes. For example, Yumulek has to teach someone how to read, so he uses a laser to actually do it. And he teaches a baby how to read. Then he teaches the mom how to read, even though she's a proclaimed novelist. Then she teaches her how to read. Then her car how to read. And eventually she gets sick of it and asks the cops to actually help her and actually try and arrest him for making all of her things literate. Only for Yumulek to blast one of the cops, and he has an existential crisis because now he can read and wonders if he'll gain empathy, which is kind of a commentary on police brutality. If you think, actually, it is a commentary on police brutality, and it's kind of funny in a messed up sort of way. Meanwhile, Terry tries to help people cross the street and also remarks that it's one of Corvo slips and that there's a surprising amount of things involving old ladies. And he tries to help an old lady across the street, but he has her walk the opposite way of where she wants to actually go. And eventually she gets so fed up with his bullshit that she just rips his arm off and starts beating him with it. And then proceeds to run off. Meanwhile, Jesse decides to free the Willies, as it were. Which fails because they wind up landing in the parking lot and getting hit by a car. So she doesn't wind up actually succeeding there. And Corvo, who winds up getting stuck doing this for the rest of the episode, he winds up giving a thing from Yumulek telling her to go die, and B, he finds out that Terry secretly wants to stimulate Miss Frankie, which Corvo winds up getting stuck doing for the rest of the episode. I'm not going to explain it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm not going to explain it. So yeah, that just going to be becoming a running bit where there's this entire montage of all the other Scorpions going off to do various fulfilling tasks, and Corvo just doing this one thing over and over. And he spends several hours of his life doing the thing. I'm not going to explain it again, but you know what I'm talking about. And after doing all that and going on their montage, they eventually return back to the ship to wonder if any of them have been fulfilled, only to discover that they're all close, but none of them have actually gotten fulfilled yet. At which point, Terry gets a word of the day message in his inbox, and decides to use it in a sentence, which enables him to actually finally become fulfilled. And he starts bragging about to the rest of the Scorpions, pointing out that he's fulfilled, and that now he's at a comfortable point in his arc, and now everybody else can just kind of deal with the fact that they're not fulfilled and he is. Which ultimately results in a shoving match, and he goes out the front window of the ship and hits the ground and dies. At which point, his fulfillment points actually transfer to Yumulak, and they realize that the only way for them all to become fulfilled is to kill each other and then take their points. And while they pretend that they're not going to go do that, Corvo, Jesse, and Yumulak then proceed to go do various plans to actually try and become fulfilled by killing one another. So Corvo's plan involves drinking a magic potion he got from a Jewish wizard. He downs that all in one gulp and gains the ability to make clones of himself. Meanwhile, Yumulak has a secret tank that he can use to actually fight them all and kill them all, and he proceeds to do that. And it is initially believed that Jessie doesn't have a thing, but pointing out that she would never want to kill her family. But as it turns out, she actually home alones the house. So yeah, she has a bunch of various traps, just hidden booby traps hidden around the house. And then proceeds to get into an all-out fight. And then proceeds to go into an all-out fight with Yumulak using his tank to kill all the Corvo clones, while Corvo chases after Jessie and tries to disarm her traps and tries to fight back against her. And eventually Yumulak kills all the Corvo clones and asks for the real Corvo to come out, only for Corvo to reveal that he has one last ace up his sleeve in the form of Orgo Corvo, who he lovingly calls Orgo, who then proceeds to be immune to all of Yumulak's weaponry, and then proceeds to kill him by crushing his head, and then barges out the front window, and we never see him again. At which point Corvo shows pleasure in the fact that he's finally killed Yumulak and is one step closer to becoming fulfilled. But Jesse comes downstairs, sees that Yumulak is dead, and then proceeds to start sobbing. At which point Corvo and Jesse realize that that instead of actually pursuing fulfillment and actually going after some dumb points, they should have spent the last several hours of their life together. At which point they embrace, and Jesse accidentally sets off a booby trap and kills Corvo. So that's how it ends, with Jesse accidentally killing Corvo, but then realizing that now because she's killed all the other Scorpions, she's fulfilled, and then proceeds to go lay out on the lawn to actually await her death. And she points out, and she tells the Pupa not to eat them too fast, or he'll get a tummy ache. And then proceeds to lie on the lawn for several seconds, although it takes a little bit longer because as apparently the timer is off. But eventually, all her head and all of the other and the heads of the other Scorpions explode and blossom into trees, and all of their faces just kind of emerge from the trees. At which point the Pupa starts eating all of the fruit growing from their branches. And Keith comes out, completely confused as to what happened, because as he points out, death is supposed to be permanent, and he's a little confused as to why they're trees. At which point they point out that there's apparently an explanation that he's a little bit surprised that humans don't know that they turn into trees when they die, pointing out that all the trees had to have come from somewhere. But Keith just points out that they're just trees. And Corvo and the others quickly realize that Scorpion death works a little bit differently from human death, and that they shouldn't have been worried about it the whole time. And then proceed to gang up on Keith for basically giving them some dumb advice to actually go out and do their fulfillment, when in actuality they would have been fine. They just reincarnated into trees. They're fine. And Keith ultimately decides to move, pointing out that he doesn't want to face the full wrath of the Scorpions once they regain their legs. And at which point they point out that that they've had a bit of an exciting year. And Yumulak points out he's a little bit annoyed because, as I said in the beginning of this review, all it did was try to become fulfilled. That's how the season ends. But Corvo points out that that was never supposed to be this big extravagant it wasn't supposed to be this big extravagant thing, and that they were always going to just end on a high note, and on a bit of a low note, because as they point out, they have more integrity, and it's not like they're going to be doing a Christmas special anytime soon. Although, as it turns out, that's a lie, because as the episode kind of teases, and as is confirmed by the actual writers of the main cast, there is actually going to be a Christmas special at some point in the future, and the Scorpions have to do it as part of their contract with Hulu. So, which is funny as hell. So, yeah, that's how that episode ends, with everybody turning into trees, and now they have to do a Christmas special once they regain their legs. So, yeah, that's my review of Solar Opposites. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over in my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to follow me on Twitter if you want to keep up to date with what's going on with the channel. I also post memes, retweet art over there, so go check those out. And also, if you want to see more content from me, be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So, if you want to see more of what you like or try something completely different, then be sure to check both of those videos out. Also, you can use crowdfunding to help support me. It's down this. You can use my Patreon to help support me. I will list you on my website if you do that. I also post written reviews on my website, so go check that out. And also, finally, if you want to go check out my Twitch, then you should go do that. I've been streaming regularly for the past month and a half. We're actually going to be streaming Miitopia this weekend, so if you guys want to go see, well, maybe, but if you guys want to go see that, then by all means, go ahead. So yeah, go check that out next week. I'm going go check that out in this coming Sunday. I'm going to again, link is in the description. But regardless of whether or not you do any or all of those things, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.